Imagine a world where time seems to stand still, where life is lived simply, and where technology is carefully scrutinized before being accepted. Now, imagine that despite this simplicity, this community thrives, economically, socially, and culturally across multiple continents. Welcome to the world of the Mennonites, a people whose traditions and rules might shock you, challenge your perceptions, and even leave you speechless. Today, we're diving deep into the enigmatic world of the Mennonites, exploring their fascinating way of life, their strict yet surprising rules, and the contradictions that shape their unique existence. From their rejection of modernity to their unexpected use of certain technologies, from their deeply rooted pacifism to their strict moral codes, every aspect of their lives tells a story unlike any other. And by the end of this video, you'll be asking yourself, could you live by these rules? Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest deep dives into the world's most intriguing communities. And here's a question to think about. Do you believe it's possible to live a fulfilling life while rejecting most aspects of modern society? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's step into a world that defies the modern age. To understand the rules that govern Mennonite life, we first have to understand who they are and where they come from. Unlike the Amish, with whom they are often confused, the Mennonites have a unique history rooted in resistance, faith, and community. Their origins trace back to the 16th century, during the Protestant Reformation, when a radical movement known as the Anabaptists emerged in Europe. These early Anabaptists rejected infant baptism, believing instead that baptism should be a conscious decision made in adulthood, a belief that directly contradicted the teachings of the Catholic and Protestant churches of the time. This defiance came at a high cost. The Anabaptists were persecuted, hunted, and even executed for their beliefs. One of the key figures who emerged during this period was Mennonites, a former Catholic priest from the Netherlands. After witnessing the brutal repression of the Anabaptists, he abandoned his previous life and became a leader of the movement. His teachings emphasized peace, simplicity, and strict adherence to the teachings of Jesus Christ. His followers became known as Mennonites, and their communities began to form across Europe. However, persecution did not stop. Many Mennonites fled, seeking refuge in more tolerant regions such as Prussia, Russia, and eventually North and South America. But here's where things get interesting. Despite centuries of migration and adaptation, many Mennonites have managed to maintain their distinct way of life. Their rules have evolved over time, but some remain as strict as they were hundreds of years ago. One of the most striking aspects of Mennonite culture is their approach to modern technology. While some conservative groups reject it outright, others selectively embrace it, leading to some unexpected contradictions. You might be surprised to find out that some Mennonites drive cars, use smartphones, and even run highly successful businesses while still holding on to their traditional values. Now, let's talk about one of the most controversial aspects of Mennonite life, their strict social and religious rules. Unlike the modern world, where individual freedom is valued above all else, Mennonite communities operate under a different philosophy, one where the well-being of the community comes before personal desires. This means that personal choices, from clothing to relationships, are often dictated by long-standing traditions rather than personal preference. Take clothing, for example. Conservative Mennonites dress in plain, modest attire that reflects their commitment to humility and separation from the outside world. Women wear long dresses, often with head coverings, while men wear simple trousers and shirts. Makeup, jewelry, and flashy colors are generally frowned upon. However, more liberal Mennonite groups have relaxed these rules, allowing for a greater degree of personal expression. Some even dress indistinguishably from mainstream society, further complicating the common misconceptions people have about them. Now, let's address something even more surprising: the role of technology in Mennonite life. Unlike the Amish, who largely reject modern conveniences, many Mennonites carefully select which technologies they will use. In some communities, electricity is completely off-limits. In others, it is permitted but used sparingly. The same goes for transportation. While traditional horse-drawn buggies are still common in some groups, others allow the use of cars under certain conditions. For example, some Mennonites are permitted to own vehicles but must paint them black to avoid vanity or excess. Others can use modern transportation, but only for work-related purposes. And then we have the fascinating case of the internet. Some Mennonites forbid it entirely, seeing it as a corrupting influence, while others allow limited use for business purposes. In fact, you might be shocked to learn that some Mennonite entrepreneurs operate highly successful online businesses, selling everything from handmade furniture to agricultural products. This selective embrace of technology reveals a deeper truth about the Mennonites. They are not entirely stuck in the past, but rather they are intentional about how they engage with modernity. But here's something to think about. Can a community truly remain isolated in today's hyper-connected world? As more young Mennonites gain exposure to the outside world, some choose to leave their communities in search of greater freedom. Others struggle with the restrictions placed on them, but remain out of loyalty to their families. This raises an important question. Should people be allowed to break away from traditions that have defined their families for centuries? Or should they be expected to conform for the sake of community unity? Before we go deeper, take a moment to support this channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on notifications. It helps us bring you more thought-provoking content like this. And here's a question for you. Do you think it's fair for communities like the Mennonites to impose strict rules on their members, even if it means limiting their personal freedoms? Let us know in the comments below. Now, let's continue unraveling the fascinating rules that govern Mennonite life. One of the most defining aspects of Mennonite life is their strong sense of community. Unlike mainstream society, where individualism is often celebrated, Mennonites prioritize the well-being of the group over personal ambition. This sense of unity is reflected in every aspect of their daily lives, from how they work to how they worship. In many Mennonite communities, agriculture is the backbone of their economy. Farming is not just a job. It is a way of life, a spiritual practice, and a means of maintaining independence from the outside world. But here's where things get even more fascinating. Despite their simple lifestyles, some Mennonite farmers have become global leaders in agricultural innovation. In places like Mexico, Belize, and Paraguay, Mennonite colonies have transformed barren lands into thriving farmlands, producing crops and dairy products that are exported worldwide. In fact, in some regions, Mennonite farmers are responsible for a significant portion of the country's food production. But here's the twist. While they are masters of agriculture, some Mennonite groups refuse to use modern farming equipment, relying instead on traditional methods. Others, however, have fully embraced cutting-edge technology, using modern machinery, irrigation systems, and even GPS tracking to maximize their harvests. This selective use of technology highlights a key Mennonite principle. They do not reject modernity outright, but rather they adopt it on their own terms. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you: their approach to education. Mennonite schools are vastly different from mainstream schools. In many conservative communities, formal education only lasts until the 8th grade, as higher education is often seen as unnecessary or even dangerous. The belief is that beyond basic reading, writing, and math, further education could expose young people to ideas that contradict their religious values. However, in more progressive Mennonite groups, higher education is encouraged, and some young Mennonites even attend universities. This difference in educational philosophy has led to an interesting divide within Mennonite communities. Some are highly educated professionals, while others believe that a simple life is the only path to righteousness. This brings us to one of the most shocking rules of Mennonite life: their approach to courtship and marriage. Dating, as most people know it, simply does not exist in traditional Mennonite communities. Instead, relationships are carefully guided by strict rules designed to ensure purity and commitment. In many cases, young men and women are only allowed to interact under strict supervision, and physical contact before marriage is completely forbidden. Some groups even practice arranged marriages, where families play a significant role in choosing a partner. The idea is that love should be built on shared faith and values rather than romantic attraction. But here's where things get even more surprising. Some Mennonite communities still practice an old tradition known as bed courtship. In this custom, a young couple who is considering marriage is allowed to spend the night together, fully clothed, with a thick board or blanket separating them. The idea behind this practice is to allow them to talk and connect on a deeper level without the temptations of physical intimacy. While this might sound unusual, it is seen as a way to foster strong emotional connections before marriage. However, in more modern Mennonite communities, dating follows a more conventional path, with couples being allowed to spend time together under looser restrictions. But here's something to think about. Can love truly flourish under such strict conditions, or does the pressure to marry within the community lead to unhappy relationships? Let us know what you think in the comments. Now let's discuss one of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of Mennonite life: their views on outsiders. Unlike many religious communities that actively seek converts, Mennonites do not typically engage in aggressive evangelism. Instead, they focus on maintaining their own traditions and way of life. Some groups are extremely closed off, refusing to interact with non-Mennonites except when absolutely necessary. Others are more open, engaging with the outside world for business, education, or even missionary work. In some cases, outsiders are allowed to join the Mennonite faith, but the process is not easy. Conversion requires strict adherence to Mennonite beliefs, including lifestyle changes that many people find difficult to accept. Some former outsiders who have joined Mennonite communities describe it as a rewarding but challenging experience, requiring them to give up many aspects of their previous lives. But perhaps the biggest question is this: what happens when a Mennonite wants to leave? The answer depends on the community. In more progressive Mennonite groups, leaving is a personal decision, and those who leave are still welcomed by their families. However, in more conservative groups, leaving the community can result in social isolation, with former members being shunned or cut off entirely. This creates a heartbreaking dilemma. Do you stay in a community that limits your personal freedom, or do you leave and risk losing everything, including your family? Before we move forward, take a moment to support this channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. It really helps us continue creating content like this. And here's something to think about. Do you believe that people should be free to leave their communities without consequences? Or is maintaining tradition more important than personal freedom? Let us know in the comments below. Now, let's continue exploring the incredible and often surprising world of the Mennonites. One of the most fascinating aspects of Mennonite life is how their communities are structured. Unlike modern urban societies, where people often live isolated lives, Mennonites prioritize strong social bonds and communal living. This means that personal decisions are rarely made in isolation. Every choice, from work to marriage to religious beliefs, is deeply intertwined with the expectations of the community. In many traditional Mennonite settlements, life revolves around the church, family, and hard work. Sundays are reserved for worship, with long church services held in simple, unadorned buildings. These services can last for hours and often include hymn singing, scripture reading, and sermons delivered in Plautich, a form of Low German spoken by many Mennonite communities. Unlike in mainstream Christianity, Mennonite services are often conducted without musical instruments, as singing is believed to be a more pure and humble form of worship. But what happens when someone disagrees with church teachings? The answer depends on how strict the community is. In more conservative Mennonite groups, questioning authority is highly discouraged. Those who challenge church teachings may be reprimanded, and in extreme cases, they may even face excommunication. This means that they are not only removed from the church, but also shunned by family and friends. For many Mennonites, the fear of being cut off from their community is enough to keep them from questioning tradition, even if they have doubts. However, in more liberal Mennonite groups, there is more room for discussion and debate. Some Mennonites have even embraced modern theology, reinterpreting traditional beliefs in ways that align with contemporary values. This has led to significant divisions within the Mennonite world, with some communities becoming more open to change, while others hold firmly to their old ways. Now, let's talk about one of the strictest and most surprising rules in Mennonite life: their approach to gender roles. In most conservative Mennonite communities, men and women have clearly defined roles that are based on biblical teachings. Men are expected to be the leaders of the household, providing for their families through farming, craftsmanship, or business. Women, on the other hand, are traditionally seen as caretakers, responsible for raising children, maintaining the home, and supporting their husbands. But here's where things get interesting. Despite these traditional gender roles, Mennonite women play a crucial role in keeping their communities running. They are highly skilled in homemaking, food preservation, and even small-scale business ventures, often selling handmade goods such as quilts, baked goods, and crafts to support their families. In some cases, Mennonite women have become successful entrepreneurs, running businesses that generate significant income for their communities. However, the role of women in Mennonite society remains a topic of debate. In more progressive communities, women have gained more rights, with some pursuing higher education and careers outside the home. In contrast, in conservative communities, women are still expected to wear traditional clothing, avoid positions of leadership, and remain submissive to their husbands. This raises an important question: should religious tradition take precedence over gender equality, or should communities evolve to allow women more freedom? Let us know what you think in the comments. Now let's explore another surprising rule: the Mennonite approach to entertainment and media. In the modern world, where people are constantly connected to television, movies, and social media, Mennonites live by an entirely different standard. Many conservative Mennonite groups completely forbid television, movies, and even music with instruments, believing that these forms of entertainment promote vanity and distract from a godly life. Instead, they encourage reading, singing, and spending time with family and community members. But not all Mennonites reject entertainment. In more liberal communities, some Mennonites listen to music, watch movies, and even use social media, though usually with limitations. For example, some Mennonite schools teach students how to use the internet responsibly, allowing them to access information while avoiding what they consider harmful influences. Some Mennonite businesses even use social media for marketing, proving that the line between tradition and modernity is not as rigid as it seems. This brings us to an even bigger question: how do Mennonites interact with the outside world? Unlike the Amish, who are known for their extreme isolation, Mennonites are more likely to engage with mainstream society. Many run successful businesses, attend universities, and even participate in humanitarian efforts around the world. In fact, Mennonite disaster relief organizations are widely respected for their work in helping communities recover from natural disasters and conflicts. This humanitarian focus is rooted in their commitment to peace and service, values that have been central to their faith for centuries. However, this engagement with the outside world comes with its own set of challenges. As more young Mennonites are exposed to mainstream culture, some begin to question the strict rules of their communities. This has led to an increase in young Mennonites leaving their traditional way of life in search of greater freedom. Some integrate into modern society with ease, while others struggle with the cultural differences, feeling torn between their upbringing and their desire for independence. This raises an important dilemma. Should Mennonite communities adapt to the changing world to retain their younger generations, or should they remain firm in their traditions, even if it means losing members? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Before we move forward, take a moment to support this channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Your support helps us continue creating content that explores the world's most fascinating communities. And here's something to think about. Do you believe that strict religious communities should evolve with the times, or do they have the right to maintain their traditional ways, even if it means losing members? Let us know in the comments below. Now, let's continue our journey into the astonishing world of the Mennonites. One of the most intriguing aspects of Mennonite life is their relationship with money. Despite their simple lifestyles, Mennonites have developed a reputation for being excellent entrepreneurs. Their skills in farming, craftsmanship, and business have allowed many Mennonite communities to thrive financially, even while rejecting many aspects of modern consumer culture. In countries like Canada, the United States, Mexico, and Paraguay, Mennonite communities have built multi-million-dollar agricultural businesses, producing dairy, grains, and livestock on a massive scale. Some of these communities own thousands of acres of farmland and sell their products internationally. This raises an interesting contradiction. While Mennonites reject materialism and vanity, they have found ways to generate significant wealth through hard work and self-discipline. But here's the catch: Mennonites do not flaunt their wealth. Unlike in mainstream society, where financial success is often displayed through luxury homes, expensive cars, and designer clothing, Mennonites maintain a strict culture of humility. Even wealthy Mennonites continue to live simple lives, dressing modestly and avoiding extravagant purchases. This commitment to humility is deeply ingrained in their faith, which teaches that pride and greed are spiritual dangers. However, this doesn't mean that Mennonites completely reject the use of money. Many communities operate on a cooperative system, where businesses and farms pool resources to support one another. This economic model allows Mennonite communities to remain largely self-sufficient, reducing their dependence on outside economies. Some groups even have their own financial institutions, including Mennonite-run credit unions and banks, which operate based on their values of honesty, trust, and mutual aid. But here's where things get even more surprising. Some Mennonites use modern banking systems, invest in stock markets, and even run online businesses. This selective approach to finance once again highlights the flexibility within Mennonite communities. While they maintain strong traditions, they are not completely opposed to engaging with the modern economy when necessary. Now let's discuss another strict rule that governs Mennonite life: their approach to discipline and justice. Unlike mainstream legal systems, which rely on law enforcement and courts, Mennonite communities often handle conflicts internally. In traditional Mennonite settlements, community elders or church leaders mediate disputes and enforce discipline. If someone violates a community rule, they may be required to confess publicly, seek forgiveness, or perform acts of service to make amends. But in more serious cases, Mennonites practice a form of discipline known as shunning. When a member of the community refuses to repent for breaking the rules, they may be temporarily or permanently shunned. This means that other members of the community will avoid speaking to them, doing business with them, or even acknowledging their presence. The goal of shunning is not punishment, but rather to encourage the individual to repent and return to the faith. However, for those who are shunned permanently, the consequences can be devastating. They lose their family, their home, and their entire way of life. This raises a controversial question. Is shunning a fair way to enforce religious discipline? Or is it a form of emotional punishment that isolates individuals from their loved ones? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. While many aspects of Mennonite life revolve around rules and discipline, there is another side to their culture that is less known: their celebrations and traditions. Despite their simple lifestyles, Mennonites have a rich cultural heritage that includes music, storytelling, and festivals. One of the most unique traditions among Mennonites is foot washing. This practice, which is based on the teachings of Jesus, involves members of the church washing each other's feet as a symbol of humility and service. This ritual is performed during special religious gatherings and is considered one of the most sacred acts of faith. Another important Mennonite tradition is their distinct cuisine. Since Mennonites have migrated across different countries over the centuries, their food reflects a mix of European, Latin American, and North American influences. Popular dishes include homemade bread, sausages, dairy products, and traditional soups. In countries like Mexico and Paraguay, Mennonites have also incorporated local ingredients, creating unique fusion dishes that blend their heritage with their new surroundings. But here's something you might not expect. Mennonite communities are also known for their hospitality. Despite their strict rules, many Mennonite groups are welcoming to outsiders, offering food, shelter, and assistance to those in need. This generosity is a reflection of their deep commitment to Christian values, which emphasize kindness, service, and humility. However, this hospitality does not mean that Mennonite communities are always open to outside influences. Many groups go to great lengths to protect their traditions, avoiding contact with mainstream society whenever possible. This has led to conflicts in some regions, where Mennonites have been accused of being too isolated or refusing to integrate with the local population. In some cases, governments have even intervened, attempting to regulate Mennonite settlements or enforce modern laws on their communities. This brings us to another controversial question. Should religious communities have the right to remain completely separate from mainstream society, or should they be required to follow the same rules as everyone else? Let us know what you think in the comments. Before we move forward, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the world's most fascinating cultures. And here's something to think about. If you had to live by the rules of the Mennonites for 1 year, do you think you could do it? Tell us why or why not in the comments below. Now let's continue uncovering the most shocking and unexpected aspects of Mennonite life. Continuing from where we left off, let's take a deeper look into how Mennonite communities manage to keep their distinct way of life while interacting with the modern world. Despite the apparent isolation that many Mennonite groups maintain, some communities have managed to strike a delicate balance between tradition and progress. While the stricter, more traditional Mennonites avoid engaging with mainstream culture as much as possible, other more liberal Mennonites have taken steps to bridge the gap between their values and the outside world. This balance is a fascinating dynamic that has played a significant role in the survival and growth of Mennonite communities worldwide. One of the most notable examples of this balance can be found in the Mennonite colonies of Paraguay. Located in the remote Chaco region, these Mennonites have thrived for over a century, growing their agricultural businesses into major global players. The community is known for its highly efficient farming practices, which incorporate modern machinery, irrigation techniques, and even online marketing strategies to expand their reach. Despite their success in the modern economy, they continue to adhere to their strict cultural rules and religious beliefs. They wear traditional clothing, live in simple homes, and avoid public displays of wealth. This has led to some criticism from outsiders who see their success as a contradiction to their seemingly antiquated way of life. But for the Mennonites of Paraguay, their success in business is a testament to their hard work, discipline, and commitment to their values. They have managed to prove that it is possible to thrive in the modern world while staying true to their cultural identity. In contrast, the Mennonites in countries like Canada and the United States have adopted a more integrated approach to modernity. Some have even started businesses that use technology and digital platforms to reach a wider audience. Many Mennonites work in technology, healthcare, and education, embracing the opportunities available while maintaining their traditional values. While some members of these communities may embrace the conveniences of modern life, others remain steadfast in their commitment to living as simply as possible. This begs the question: how do Mennonites reconcile their commitment to simplicity with the demands of modern life? And more importantly, what is the price they pay for it? Is it possible to be deeply embedded in a traditional way of life while participating in the global economy? Before we dive further into these complex issues, if you're enjoying the exploration of the Mennonite world, hit the like button to show your support. Also, if you're finding this video insightful, subscribe to our channel so you never miss another deep dive into fascinating cultures like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think communities like the Mennonites can balance tradition with modern life? Do you think it's possible to live a fulfilling life without embracing every aspect of modern society? Let us know your opinion, and feel free to share any experiences or thoughts you might have about living in a close-knit community. Now let's explore the role of Mennonites in the global humanitarian landscape. Despite their relatively small numbers, Mennonites have made a significant impact in the world of charity and disaster relief. Many Mennonite organizations, such as Mennonite Central Committee, MCC, have been instrumental in providing aid to communities affected by natural disasters, conflicts, and extreme poverty. Their commitment to peace and service is reflected in their work, which often focuses on rebuilding communities, providing food, shelter, medical care, and offering long-term support to help people rebuild their lives. The MCC operates worldwide, with relief efforts that span across continents, from the war-torn regions of Syria and Ukraine to the earthquake-stricken areas of Nepal. Mennonite relief work is unique in its approach, focusing not only on short-term aid, but also on empowering communities to become self-sufficient in the long run. Their efforts reflect their core values of pacifism, service, and humility. But they also show that Mennonites are far from isolated or out of touch with the world. However, this kind of engagement with the global community raises another set of questions. Should Mennonites, who value separation from the outside world, be so actively involved in global affairs? Is this commitment to global service an extension of their faith, or does it complicate their desire to remain separate from mainstream society? And if the Mennonites engage with the world to such an extent, does that risk eroding their cultural identity over time? Before we move further, don't forget to like this video if you're finding it thought-provoking. It really helps us continue bringing you fascinating content about different cultures. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our in-depth analyses of unique ways of life. And in the comments, share your thoughts. Do you think it's possible for a community to maintain its traditional way of life while helping others across the globe? Let us know what you think. Continuing with the theme of Mennonites and their adaptation to the outside world, one of the most interesting contradictions within the community is their view on education. While some groups limit education to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, others have embraced more extensive learning. Mennonite students in progressive communities are encouraged to attend university and pursue professional careers. As a result, many young Mennonites become doctors, engineers, teachers, and business leaders, while still adhering to their core values. However, for many conservative Mennonites, higher education is seen as unnecessary and potentially harmful. The belief is that further education can lead to secular thinking and a departure from the faith. As a result, young people in these communities are often discouraged from pursuing advanced degrees, instead focusing on practical skills that can serve the community. This creates a divide between the more liberal and conservative Mennonites, with some embracing higher education while others continue to maintain their traditional vocational approach to life. The question remains, can education and tradition coexist within the Mennonite faith? Is it possible to gain an education while still adhering to the principles of simplicity and humility? Or does the pursuit of higher knowledge lead to a loss of connection to the community's roots? If you're still following along, hit that like button and let us know in the comments what you think about the balance between education and tradition in Mennonite communities. Do you believe that higher education can coexist with traditional lifestyles? Or is it a threat to the way of life that the Mennonites hold dear? As we continue to unravel the complexities of Mennonite life, we come to one of the most striking contradictions of all, how they deal with modern societal issues, particularly the topic of LGBTQ+ rights. Despite their commitment to peace, service, and community, Mennonites have faced criticism for their stance on LGBTQ+ rights. In many conservative Mennonite communities, homosexuality is seen as a sin, and LGBTQ+ individuals are often excluded from church life. This has led to internal debates within the community about how to handle this issue, with some more progressive Mennonites advocating for greater acceptance, while others insist on holding firm to traditional teachings. This creates a difficult dilemma. How can a community that values peace, acceptance, and service reconcile its commitment to inclusivity with its adherence to conservative religious teachings? And what happens when a Mennonite wants to live openly as LGBTQ+? Before we continue exploring this sensitive topic, please take a moment to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Your engagement helps us bring more content about the complexities of communities like the Mennonites, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Can Mennonite communities evolve to accept LGBTQ+ individuals? Or are their traditional teachings too deeply embedded to allow for change? Let us know your opinion, and feel free to share any experiences you may have had with similar issues in your own life.